This is YGTV and YG Roundtable, built by Max Weiss. I'm your host, Pat Miller, the Idea Coach. Today, I'm leading a discussion on designing the customer experience. Let's go. YG Roundtable is a place to explore big ideas, challenge conventional thinking, and stay in touch with the trends. For more content shaking up the business industry, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let's get into it. Today's episode is really after my own heart because today's about being unique, but it's not just being unique. It's about being unique so you serve your customer, so you increase sales, so you grow your company. It's something that it seems like everybody wants nowadays. The problem is not everybody does it right. And the special thing about this episode is we've got three really unique perspectives on how to be a customer champion and really engage your customer. And I just could not be more excited. So first of all, thanks to you three for coming today. And I want to make sure that the viewers know what makes you unique and why you're around the round table, because you each look at this a different way. So Susannah, tell us about how you lead customer engagement and what you do to engage customers right now.
Sure. So I own Style Up Group, which is a lifestyle company here in Milwaukee that specializes in event services and home services. So our unique aspect under the event services category is a mobile event space that we have. So we've kind of branded our business to bring the experience to you rather than you going to a venue and renting out the venue and creating something. So we really specialize in these pop-up events, and especially in today's climate, we've pivoted and tweaked what we're doing to really create these wonderful, intimate and unique events with our mobile event space and pop-up bars.
And for a customer, you would help them take what they want and make it come to life. So you're on the front lines of making these pop-up events engaging and really surprising and delighting the customers.
Absolutely, and everything we do, pretty much everything we do, is completely customized too. So we always start by speaking with the client, talking about their hopes and dreams for the event, what their goals are, and then so we take that end goal and then we kind of work backwards and put it together. How can we achieve that?
Which is a great perspective to have around the round table. David, we're going to come to you because while Susannah might be down in the trenches with customers, you have a background in human-centered design and some of the theoretical ideas of how we can serve a customer. So tell us about that and your perspective on satisfying customers.
Sure. So many companies are looking for transformation or making change right now, and you can make a lot of great changes that don't have any benefit to the customer. And so really design centers around the idea of desirability, feasibility, and viability. And a lot of companies will start with feasibility and forget the desirability. And so a lot of the work that I do is to help them take that step back and really understand what does the customer need, what do they want, even if they don't know it themselves, and then incorporate that in and also blend that in with any continuous improvement efforts and things like that, because at the end it's got to serve the customer and it's got to create that great experience. And if you're not in tune with the customer, you're not going to know how to do that.
And the heart of human-centered design is putting you in the shoes of the customer so they experience what the company or brand is trying to present. Is that right?
Absolutely. It's spending that time with them literally in the shoes, right? And observing them, even learning enough about them that you could see and understand something about what they need that they may not understand themselves. And that takes a full commitment to spending time with them and to really exploring those deeper needs.
Mm-hmm. And what's cool about the rest of the panel, Steve, is that we've got someone that's doing it right now. We've got someone that understands the theory of how it should be done, but you've got actual, I've done it with some of the biggest companies in the world, one of Milwaukee's most beloved companies, Harley Davidson. Tell us your past about customer experience and immersion that you did for Harley.
Sure, and I spent 35 years, the first 35 years of my career at Harley Davidson in a variety of roles, but early in my career, I was given this challenge, which is the company wants to have an owners club. And we did a little bit of research and we gave a speech about it, and can you take this and start an owners club next year? And so that required really a refocus of the creation of an organization and a refocus of the company around something that the company, I think, really believed in, but didn't know how to manifest it. And so the creation of the Harley Owners Group was a chance for Harley Davidson to put a stake in the ground and say, we know our customers have this tremendous loyalty to our brand, to our products, and this was the ability of Harley Davidson to latch onto that and to, I call it, fully embracing the passion of the customers. And in many ways, having the Harley Owners Group changed Harley Davidson, because what it allowed was the company to have an ability to demonstrate its appreciation for its customers, and to leverage that connection to further the company. Harley Owners Group members got first notice of a lot of new products, got invited to things that were great for them to know and good for the company to have them as part of. And so that piece of the start of HOG was the initial piece of the change of the company. Later in my career, I was asked to take a role which was director of all of the customer experience activities at Harley. So all of the marketing related activities related that specifically engaged customers. That piece of it gave me a chance to really, so this was many years later, it gave me a chance to take a different set of eyes on a program that had 1 million members, but what do we need to do to change it? What can make this better in a time when the world has changed and a time that we can really, let's amp it up. And things like digital connections, which were never part of anything back in the 80s, and really the need to have a connection beyond the face-to-face to make that connection real.
And the Harley Owners Group is one of the preeminent brand-driven clubs in the world. It's studied. People watch what that brand did and essentially what you did as a blueprint of ways that corporations and big companies can get down in the trenches, understand who their customer is, and make a difference and really make a positive connection. And you can't make that connection unless you know who the customer is. So this might sound silly, and you touched on it just a minute ago. I'm going to come back to you, David. How do we know who the customer is and who the best customer is? Because I think we all want to stand for something, but we want to stand for something with our absolute best customers. How do we identify it?
Yeah, so there's a number of techniques, obviously, design thinking and some of the others, but really going out, I'll share a story, if that's okay. The Magnolia Cupcake Bakery in New York was started by two women who thought it'd be really cool to start a bakery in New York City, like the most competitive environment in the world, right? And they were having trouble making ends meet, and then their air conditioning goes out, and they had some extra batter one night, baking late, and some students from NYU came home from studying, right? And they saw the cupcakes, so they bang on the window and they say, "Hey, sell us these cupcakes." And they're like, "Go away, go away." And the short version of the story is they sold them the cupcakes, and the next night there were more NYU students who came by, and eventually they figured out that was the customer, right? Those are the people they needed, and they grew that into the whole gourmet cupcake thing. We all pay $5 for a cupcake now, right? Is because of that. And the lesson there is you've got to experiment, you've got to try. Now they were forced to do that. Their air conditioning went out, so they were baking late at night. But you've got to instill those kinds of experimentations and outreaches, as well as you can imagine. I mean, it wasn't like they thought, well, we'll be a steel mill and we become a bakery, right? They knew they were going to be a bakery, but they invested the time in narrowing that and then getting the feedback loop established, and that's how they came to understand it. What those original ones were just ordinary cupcakes. They weren't, again, the $5 cupcake. So it's those kinds of things. There's some formal ways to do that, as well as just like they embrace the serendipity of the moment. Sometimes your customers will tell you stuff just through their behavior. It's like, they're doing that? Oh my gosh, maybe we ought to sell a product like that.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of where you were going, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the Harley Owners Group piece of it was one where you don't, I think we made a point earlier where you don't know what your customers, you can't just rely on your customers to tell you what they want, because they may not have envisioned that. Nobody that night was probably going, we got to find a cupcake place. They were going, that looks good. And I think it's common for companies, even companies that have the resources to research, that they're waiting for their customers to tell them what the next version of themselves is. But you have to almost know your customers better than they know themselves, so that you can predict where they will be going and what they really need.
We're just getting started. Let's take a quick break and come back for more with Steve, David, and Susannah. This episode of YG Roundtable, built by Max Weiss, is sponsored by Health Payment Systems.
Max Weiss is a company that does it right the first time. A company that sets the curve in excellence. Rolled, curved, formed, forged, fabricated. A company that delivers on time. A company that drives innovation forward. A company that has satisfied customers for over 75 years. Anything metal, Max Weiss Company. Call or visit us online to learn more about Max Weiss Company.
For more than 80% of families, today's medical billing practices are confusing. At HPS, our goal is to improve the healthcare experience for the patient by making medical bill payments less stressful. In Wisconsin, that's all made possible by our comprehensive independent healthcare provider network. We simplify billing and lower costs for everyone involved in healthcare and offer various ways for individuals to pay without breaking the bank.
Let's talk about how we might get to know our customers better. What techniques have you seen, maybe implemented, that may be practical, that someone watching the show can think, oh, I never thought to do that. That makes a lot of sense. Do you have any ideas?
Well, yeah, I mean, I love the fact that we're talking about you can have an idea at the beginning, but then as you go and try new things, you kind of whittle it down and perfect it as time goes on. So I've definitely found that to be true. And to anyone listening who's thinking about perhaps starting a business, you can absolutely go into it thinking, okay, here's my ideal customer. I've done the research, as it said to do the research in such and such book that I read, and all of these different things. And then when you're actually doing it, that doesn't make sense all the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to pivot and change. And I personally absolutely found that. Sometimes there are things outside of our control too that are going to change the way that we do things and perhaps change who our customer is. Obviously, working in the event business and with things happening in the world such as the pandemic, I can have an idea pre-pandemic of what my customer looks like, but then to be a business that survives this, especially an event business that survives this, it was really important to quickly realize, okay, people aren't going to be having these large 200-person events or weddings. They are looking to have micro events and micro birthday parties, and they want to keep people outside. So it's kind of all of those things together. Again, at the beginning, you can think, this is my ideal customer, and this is how I want things to look like, but kind of trial and error and outside forces too might kind of change that a bit, and you have to be open to that.
And if you have to change your customer from a philosophical point of view, is there some cognitive dissonance? Like, it might be upsetting to an entrepreneur to think, I want to serve this person, but these people really love me. Is that a tough change to make, David?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for any company, but especially an established one. So I'll give you an example from some of the work that I led at Northwestern Mutual. Very much focused on, obviously, a life insurance company when we're serving people when someone has passed away. And so they probably need that money, so let's get that money to them faster. And all of our continuous improvement work was around getting that money to them faster, But we sat down with them and just talked about the experience. In a big project I led, had a number of conversations where the individual said, yeah, it was okay, but it put a lot of burden on me. So we're putting burden on them at a time when they don't need burden. We think we're helping them, right? And I mean, that completely blew up our thinking. And we had spent a lot of money, a lot of time doing what we thought was right, getting it to them faster, and we're actually making the process harder on them. But again, you've got to be willing to, one, ask, but two, if you find out, change. Mm-hmm. And that took a lot, because again, everything we were thinking about was around that faster.
Service, yeah. Even with my consulting company that I formed after I left Harley Davidson, it's called Authentic CX, and the intent was focus on customer experience, and with a variety of clients, and bring to the table what I took from that part of my career. And what I discovered was that a lot of my clients, people said, we want to work with you. And then you discover what they really need help on today is communications. And so I had to pivot a little bit in my own consulting work from customer experience to communications, because that was the immediate need of the clients that came to me right away.
I do want to spend one more second, though, with how do we find our ideal customer? Because when you think about your work at Harley and some of the companies you've helped after leaving Harley, the folks that ride a Harley, it's a very diverse, large group. How did you find that customer avatar or that individual that you wanted to target the Harley Owners Group at? Because I think that would be instructional for other companies that need to find their ideal customer.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of answers to that question, because of that range of customers for Harley Davidson. So, and I think part of it was, how do we create a product that appeals to that range of customers? And in the simplest example, there are those who love to ride in groups. There are those who say, every Saturday morning, if I can go to my Harley dealership and join up with 10 or 20 or 100 other people and ride, that's going to be the most fun I could possibly ever have. And there are others that say, you know what, my passion is get on my bike and just go ride by myself and do my thoughts and collect myself and take my hour-long vacation or whatever it might be. So when we were building the Harley Owners Group, and as we adapted it going forward, we had to make sure that there were elements of the Harley Owners Group that appealed to the luckiness of Harley Davidson to have that range of customers, but to make sure the product was flexible enough that it had benefits for everyone who was on a Harley, not just one end of the spectrum or another.
And now we're getting to the good stuff, okay? If I sell shoes, I can know that my demographic is this gender, this age range, this is what I do. But what I hear you saying is it's not just who the customer is targeted at, it's what they do with it. It's how they experience it. Am I hearing that right?
Exactly.
All right, so let's talk about that, Susannah. So you're throwing an event, and I say, hey, I want to have an event. How do you start thinking about the experience and the feeling that someone's going to have at your event? Because this is where any normal brand can become an abnormal brand by getting better, by thinking about how someone experiences their product. How do you go about doing that from an event? Because I think it's easy for someone to understand, oh, I'm throwing an event, I'm throwing a party, let's make it X.
Yeah.
How do you go about thinking about that?
Well, number one, communication is key. So it's really important, in my opinion and in my experience, to just have excellent communication from the start. And we talk about customer experience and that, I'm the girl at the end that's actually delivering that, on the ground. However, customer experience starts way before then. It's also the communication that they have with me. It's when they go to my Instagram page and the feeling that they get looking at that. What makes them actually reach out to me, what they've heard about me. All of these are customer experience things. So the event planning process and what the customer feels when they're working with Style Up Group is through all of our correspondence. It's through our one-on-one meetings and event walkthroughs and all of that. So again, communication is extremely important to me. So when I have good communication with the client, I can ask the right kinds of questions, kind of like you're doing here at this roundtable. It's like you can kind of have an idea of what we're going to talk about, but then it's those follow-up questions. So I can have an idea that X client is going to have a milestone event and they just really want it to be something special. They're going to have it at their house, it's for their husband who's turning 40, I get it. But then you have to kind of ask these other questions. Well, do you have food lined up? What does that look like? Do you have floral lined up? You don't want to do that? Why? Well, have you ever thought about this? And it's just kind of layering on all of these different things. So me as the creative can kind of have this whole vision in my head, and then the very, very, very last thing is the actual event. Yeah. By the time you get to the event, that's like the easiest part. It's all this other stuff and the build-up and the figuring out the best way to do things. I think that's the most challenging. It's a part that I actually really, really enjoy, because I think there's a lot of opportunity in that. But once you actually get to the event itself, it's just like execution.
When we're talking about customer experience, especially in this setting, I think to get the three of you around a table and talk about you should serve tacos, not spaghetti, would be a mistake, right? I like the idea of what you said. It's very insightful that the customer experience begins long before you deal with the customer.
Yeah.
From the Style Up Group's perspective, how do you think about that? Yes, communication is important, but like, does your brand have a personality? Do you have, it's more than just color schemes. How do you think about it?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I'm not even sure I know how to answer that eloquently. But I think about all of those things. I think about the colors.
Sure.
The colors that you can kind of see as a theme throughout, my feed. I do think of it as a personality. One thing that we talk about a lot is authenticity. I think at the beginning of Style Up Group that started like a couple years ago, I had an idea of what I wanted everything to sound like and look like. And that has changed over time, and it's become way more authentic, and it's much easy. I don't want to say business is easy, because it's not. It's super duper hard. But it's much easier than it was before, trying to, have this voice or this look that I thought people wanted and that they would respond to. And now it comes much more naturally because it's just much more authentic to me and to the brand. So I think it's okay, especially today, to have your personality, especially if you're a solo entrepreneur, to have that personality come through. I think, Pat, we even talked about like one time when we were getting coffee, just that it's okay to do a Facebook Live or do a story and have people really get to know you, the person behind the brand, and that's really all part of it.
And this authenticity word, we got there. Yeah. This is where I wanted to get to. Because to be authentic, you have to be unique.
Yes.
And there is not a more unique brand that I can think of than Harley. How did you make authenticity come to life for Harley? Because a Harley rider would know if someone that never rode a Harley wrote that copy or took that picture.
Sure, yeah.
So I'm sure it was critical. How did that live out in a corporation like that?
So, well, and that's really interesting because, as a corporation, Harley-Davidson has those people who are passionate about motorcycling, and they have those people who are great at other functions. And I hate to pick on accountants or HR people, but they are hired because they're great at accounting or HR.
Yeah.
What happens at Harley is they get caught up in the excitement of the product and working with customers and things. But when we went at it, we had to go and say, luckily, the team that I had early on were all motorcyclists, and they were riders. They had experience riding with other Harley riders, and so there's a little bit of that intuition that you get from what I've done. But one of the biggest benefits for Harley-Davidson of having the Harley Owners Group was what came back into the company, which geared not just what Hog was to be, but what the company was to be. So, we went to a rally, or created a rally, and we had thousands of Harley riders there, and here's what we heard, and we take that back. And what they asked for and what we think that they really want in the future is this. But what I would add to Susannah's comment is, people want to work with people, not with companies, right? So your personality as part of your company is a critical element of brand. That's authentic for you. And one of the things that we did was we knew that our leaders at Harley-Davidson needed to be part of this. They needed to be connected with customers just like that. When we started, most of the leadership, including Susannah's dad, were riders, and so it came very naturally. And but that's where you become more authentic to your customers when they see the leadership of your organization interacting with them. So when the president of Harley-Davidson or the CEO or the chairman or VPs or anybody from the company is there interacting with customers at a rally or event, things like that, the customers go, this is what they are because they're out here with us. And then those people easily translate the needs of the customers and the comments of the customers. We fixed product issues because our leaders were out there talking to customers who had those issues, and they came back on Monday and they said, you know what, this is an issue, we got to get it fixed, and things got fixed.
And I think a lot of business people, me included, I've felt guilty of this when I was in the radio business. We'd look at the research and think the research was the answer. And customers will tell us if we ask them, right, David?
Oh, absolutely. Tell you lots of things. I love what you were saying too, is they will tell you and they'll say things, but they also do things, and you have to observe what they're doing as much as hear them. The old adage, Henry Ford supposedly said, if I asked my customer what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse, right? Because he didn't understand. They needed transportation. They needed a way to get around and so forth. And in fact, there's a great documentary called A Faster Horse about the 50th anniversary Mustang. And one of them was the accounting conflict, right? The iconic part of a Mustang is that progressive turn signal. That was going to cost $6.50 more. And the accountant's like, no. and they're like, yes, because that's what people expected, right? And that's what they had to have. And they had to have that work, right? That's the challenge too, is we get that great, I mean, we could have a lot of great customer experiences, and it might cost us a fortune and we can't deliver it. That's why, I mentioned it earlier, but it's that combination of desirability, feasibility, and viability. Can we still make money at this? So it's all of those things and blending that. That's what makes a fabulous product. But I love the idea, though, of reinforcing that observation. You really have to spend some time, and you touched on it earlier. You did have a really great point. You said you did, but you had a great point. Start with something and then see, and then experiment, and do it at a low enough level and a low enough cost and a low enough risk that you can do several of those and be wrong. Find your cupcake, invest your time and find that cupcake, right? But it's that small iteration and small tests that gives you the freedom to be wrong. And wow, I completely blew this, right? And there's a million stories of products, right? Pinterest started as a shopping thing, and nobody was buying anything, and they watched what people did, and they were cataloging all their stuff and showing it to their friends. They're like, oh, well, maybe that's what we ought to be in business to do.
Wow.
But they were open to that and observing, and so those are the foundational principles that Harley is, small company, whatever. Just keep iterating through that. It's not a linear development.
To be authentic and to give someone a unique customer experience, you can't give an experience for everybody. You have to have a little bit of courage to say, I'm for this audience, not for that audience. Have you experienced that in the past?
Yeah. I've actually been thinking about this recently. So another thing that I'll kind of answer that a little bit more, but another thing I would add to that is you don't have to have one customer for all the stuff you do. Right. I mean, most businesses have many different services, many different products, and it's not that one ideal customer that fills all of those. Right. So I think that was something that I learned as time went on, as I figured it out, as I figured out my cupcake. Mm-hmm. Is that what we were saying?
I'm taking that away from today. Find your cupcake. That's brilliant right there.
Note to self, trademark that.
Trademark, find your cupcake.
As I found my cupcake, so I have this kind of clientele for these services, this type of customer for these services. So I realized that it's not just a one-dimensional thing. Of course, there's similarities. I would say that all of my customers have a love of design in some way or another. Whether you're booking a home service, booking an event, just renting something from me, all of them have an appreciation for design, an appreciation for style. However, there are differences, depending on which service, what kind of client that I have. In the beginning, I'm just going to keep going back to the same thing. You do figure things out as time goes on, and you have trial and error, and you try things, and you mess up, and then you tweak it and do it better the next time. So I have absolutely found that. At the beginning, when I first did my very first business class, which was like business boot camp at UWM night school or something like that, they had us write down like who our ideal client is, and you do this whole description on them and what services they're going to get. And mine was a bride with such and such budget, and It wasn't until I was actually putting the services out there, launching my website, doing my social media, that I realized that's only just one of my clients.
Yeah.
Like there's many different kinds of clients.
But again, my instincts took us down to a certain person of a certain age and a certain zip code. What we've come back to again, which is really smart, and this is why I wanted the three of you here, because this is next level stuff. Your customer, as I hear you say it, is not necessarily one person in one zip code. It's people that appreciate beautiful things. It's people that want Instagram-worthy moments. It's design, it's fashion, that's what runs through your entire brand.
Yeah.
You have different customers, but they all share that thing. And
Yes.
that leads me to Harley, which I would think it would be something like freedom. Like, what was the word that circled around Harley as that uniting mantra?
That was it. You got it.
Freedom?
So it was freedom.
Do I get a
So-
prize? Do I get a cupcake? Yes.
So it was, freedom, independence. It was a lot of the ability to go where I want to go and do what I want to do, to surround myself with friends, people of like mind.
Yeah.
And so that, that was the authenticity of of what we did. And there's a lot of different personalities in those customers.
Yes.
Some who wanted freedom and friends, but didn't mind a whole lot of structure to what they were doing. It's great to know that if the run leaves at 7:30 in the morning, gathering will be at 7, coffee at 7, whatever it might be. And others who said, if the run leaves at 7:30, I'll roll in at 7:30, and and I'll stay as long as I want, and I'll go. So you have to create, what we were doing. If it needed a structure that worked for a lot of people. But it was really about leveraging that within this freedom, the spirit of freedom that was in the customers.
And is that the essence of customer design and brand personality and all the things we're kind of circling around here, finding that uniting feel for the customer once you understand what they want from you, delivering it in a certain way, because that would then line up with all of your events and all of your brand expression. Am I thinking about that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And recognizing that you may have that core essence, right? Like if we go with freedom for Harley, and they may be experiencing it at a different point in life, right? Or to your point, the clients may think they're ready for this, but they're not. I'll say in transformation work, for example, one of the things that I will explore right away is where they're really at. Do they want to stay in the game, like stay in business, stay competitive? Do they want to play the game better, or do they want to change the game? Because everybody thinks, I want to do innovation. I want to do that. Yeah, we all do, right? You're barely keeping your business afloat. Maybe we should start here and helping them both connect with that authentically, what they want, and showing them that path to get there. Maybe a path as well, and that's part of it. Say as well, but
illustrating that point can be scary to someone that doesn't understand the vision. Right? So
Yes.
How do you get the vision from the essence of the customer, the essence of the interaction, to the decision makers or your colleagues? Sometimes it's fighting amongst a company. It's people that don't really get this higher level thing the three of you are touching on, which is the soul of a company, the brand vision, what they live for, because that's what unites all of the services that you offer. Any ideas on how you could kind of express that to someone that just doesn't get it?
Sure. I'll say creating an aha moment for them. If you can get them, so we had one of our executive vice presidents, got him on a call with the call center folks. And I forget the exact problem, but something was going on, and he got off the phone and he asked our employees, like, does that happen all the time? Oh yeah, we can't possibly do this, this, and this, and then we'll have to delay them 6 weeks, and boom, he was right over to get that fixed. But he was unaware of it. And it wasn't because he didn't care, he certainly was involved, but giving them those aha moments. And so looking for those kinds of things. I can share a quick story and helping people with transformation ideas. So I had a team that we were trying to run continuous improvement. It was for them. It's what they said they wanted. And yet when I went to them, they're like, nah, we can't possibly improve this. I was like, really? Like, no. I said, okay, well, I'm kind of dumb. Why don't you just tell me what you guys do? And I pointed to one woman, I said, what do you do in this process? So she said, well, I make 3 copies of the form, I fax 1, I shred 2, and when the fax is confirmed, I shred the original. I said, you do what? She told the story again, and a third time, and halfway through the third time, she's like, why am I doing that? I'm like, I don't know, you're the one that told me, right? But that team became an advocate for us then for the rest of the program because they had that aha moment where they thought they couldn't possibly do anything to change. They were working very hard, and we recognize that. And you have to pace people too. You have to meet them where they're at and recognize you're doing good work. We'd like to do better work, and getting them to do that.
So getting the aha moment, getting the executives out talking to people, and something I just can't stop thinking about, and I'm trying to find my cupcake way to express this because I think this is like a real headline right now.
This is good. You're good. You're doing very well.
Oh, I'm trying, but I think I am kind of stuck on right now the idea that our customers are not just clicks and forwards and comments and engagement online. They're actual people, and you're all saying, get out, talk with them, listen to them, experience what they're doing.
Yes.
And that's something that your company focuses on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you have to, everyone's like, I keep getting flashbacks in this conversation to the TV show Undercover Boss.
Oh, yeah.
And like everyone's saying like, everyone should do Undercover Boss more in different ways, of course. But like, yes, you do need to be on the ground floor, the executives with the people riding the Harleys or continuous improvement. Just show me, how you do this and why you do it that way. And as they're talking, they realize that it's getting to just the basic ground level and talking with people that you see so much more. I mean, I had experience in the corporate world, and I remember when the continuous improvement people came in, it was like, aha! It was very.
See that reaction?
Yes, it was like it was
okay.
scary. Yes, because you're like, oh my God, they're gonna come here and like audit and tell me the way that I do everything sucks, and you kind of have this whole. But then as you're talking to them, and other departments are also explaining their processes, and then we start sharing information, and then people in other departments and levels in the company start accessing this information, and the communication in general gets way better to where you have executives understanding what's happening at the call center or at the basic level or at the street, as you're handing somebody a drink, then we understand what this is all about.
I'm bringing you with me on my next consulting. You just tell them that story.
We only have a few minutes left, but it would be a crime not to try and get some actual tactics and ideas, and let's just workshop for a little bit. If someone's building a company, maybe they're building their department inside of a corporation, but let's see if we can come up with some actionable things that someone can do to try and get closer to the customer, understand maybe what their brand voice is supposed to be, some of the things we've talked about on this episode. But if you were advising someone that's starting a company or they're an entrepreneur that's growing their company, give us some down and dirty tactics, some things that they should probably be doing right now to know their customer better.
Well, and two things that I would put in there is one is, and I think we'll probably all say this, is communications, and it's a two-way thing, and the ability now to do that is so much better than it was years ago because of social media, because of varying types of engagement. That's one piece of it. The other thing, and I think a lot about somebody within a large organization who is trying to make a statement or make change. And I think my advice to that person is stand for something. And I got, because of my early piece of my career in developing the Harley Owners Group, I was always the guy who knew customers. And I found, even going deeper into my career, I was invited to things and called into meetings because Steve's the guy who knows more about our customers than anybody. Even though I wasn't the research guy, I was the kind of the intuition and knowledge guy. So if you stand for something, whether it be, I know our customers and what they need, whether it be, here's a gap that we as an organization have to fix or anything like that. Stand for something and become known for what you stand for, whether you have your own company or in a large organization. It'll pay off.
Susannah, how about you? How about finding that thing that your company stands for or getting to know your customers better? Any tips or tricks or tactics we might be able to take away?
Yeah, I think, these gentlemen have worked for very international companies and very large companies. Mine is very locally focused. So community, our immediate Milwaukee community, has always been something that I've been very conscious of. So as a local business here in Milwaukee that's woman-owned, It's really important for me to be involved in my community, and that is a really important aspect to Style Up Group, that we are involved in the community, giving back to the community, and all of that relates back to the customer and who my customer is. Like, it's all related, and I think one of the most enjoyable aspects about being an entrepreneur here in Milwaukee that is very involved in the community is when all these worlds collide. You know, when the community world and the personal world and the family world and the business world, when they all collide. And, you know, I would say like the networking aspect, but also just the like human connection aspect has been so beneficial. I always say at Style Up Group and just in my own I'm Susannah brand, that you'll never regret an investment you make in your community. You'll never regret it. It will always come back to you in one way or another.
When those brands collide, that's the authenticity check. If you're one person to one and someone else to another, your customers, like we talked about Harley, they'll know it right away.
Yeah.
David, anything that you can share with us about finding our ideal customer, finding our brand voice to improve our customer experiences that someone that might be watching could learn from and take action?
Sure. I would say very, very quickly, just if you frame it in the sense of empathize and understand, take that and ideate and kind of test it out, right? Then design something, prototype it in a very, very quick way, and test that. And then what you learned, go back to the empathy, and then ideate, and keep doing that. And if you invest in that process, if you will, you're going to get the feedback, you're going to get the ideas, you're going to get that deeper understanding of the people that you're trying to serve. And when you have that, when you really know them, and when you're kind of envisioning, like you said, you're seeing, I'm seeing Pat Miller right here when I'm doing this, and I'm making a cupcake just for this guy.
Just for me.
But when you do that, your heart's in it, and all the other things that you need to produce a good product are going to come together. You just make that investment. That simple process, though, if you do that over and over again, you almost can't go wrong.
Well, I wish we had an extra hour and a half to continue this discussion. I really appreciate all of your expertise and your guidance today, Steve. Susannah, David, thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
YG Roundtable, built by Max Weiss, is YG TV's place to explore issues facing the business community and learn from subject matter experts who stand out in their field. If you've got an idea for an episode or you'd like to appear as a panelist, drop us a note on our website, younggunsmovement.com. For more great content shaking up the business industry, you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Pat Miller, the Idea Coach, and a big thanks to Steve Piehl, David Marlow, and Susannah Lago for appearing today.